Hi, this is Mark Pizzacalla and welcome to 3 Minutes with Mark. Now what I want to talk about today is the difference between employees and contractors. Now you might say, what's so exciting about that? But it is pretty exciting at the moment because we've got two High Court decisions with different opinions. Now that makes this an important topic for us to consider. Now I'm going to look at one of those cases called ZG Operations. Now, what happened in that case was that you had a truck driver that was essentially an employee of the company. But at some point in time, the company said, look, we'd still like to have you, but not as an employee. We'd prefer to have you as a contractor. So what happened next? Well, that particular individual went out and purchased their own truck and set up their own partnership structure, which meant they got some tax benefits resulting from it as well. And they continued to work for the company on the basis of a contractor. Now remember that this decision went through 3 courts with 3 different opinions. At the federal court it was a contractor outcome, at the full federal court it was an employee outcome, and at the high court it was reversed again to be a contractor outcome. So you've got to ask yourself, how does this happen? How do we get to the situation where a case like this goes through 3 different courts with 3 different opinions? Well, let's have a closer look. As it so happens, in the earlier courts, what essentially happened is that the courts looked at the totality of the relationship between the parties. In other words, the courts looked at how the parties conducted themselves. But once it got to the High Court said, hold up, that's not what you do. The characterisation of the relationship must be looked at by reference to the rights and obligations under the contract. And so when you looked at this particular contract, essentially what happened was that the reality of the situation was that it was the drivers' partnerships that were in operation in business, not the drivers themselves. So what this tells me is that you really need to focus on the contract and the rights and obligations under the contract when formulating the decision as to whether someone's an employee or not, or a contractor. Simply describing someone as a contractor where that's not reflected in the rights and obligations under the contract, that's not going to cut the mustard. Now, so what are some tips that I can give you? Here's 5. When drafting the contract, ensure that it's based on outcomes, i.e. you're not paying someone for their time. Make sure the contractor is not controlled in terms of the way they perform their work, that they have the right to delegate, that they have their own insurance, and also that the contractor can work for others. In other words, they don't work exclusively for the company that they are contracting with. So look, this is causing massive confusion in the marketplace at the moment. So don't feel embarrassed because I can tell you, you're not alone. Any questions, feel free to give me a call.